what's happening today, just to give you an idea of where we are during the week. It's a busy day in Indianapolis today for the players who will be interviewing with teams. The running backs, offensive line, and specialists all have psychological testing today. And then there's the bench press with kickers working out. The quarterbacks and pass catchers will have measurements and medical exams as well. And the guys in the front seven will register and do hospital pre-examinations. So there is plenty going on today. A look now at some of the measurements for the top quarterback prospects, which everybody's talking about. Josh Allen coming in at just under 6'5", 237, definitely one of the larger hand sizes you'll see this week. Sam Darnold, USC, measured out at over 6'3", 221 pounds, a hand size at 9 3/8, a fourth of an inch below the average quarterback hand size. As for the Heisman Trophy winner, Lamar Jackson, he's 21, listed just a shade over 6'2", a lean 216, and a 9.5-inch hand. And last year's Heisman winner, Baker Mayfield, who everybody's talking about, measured out at just over 6 feet. Jackson and Mayfield pretty similar in the weight department, but Mayfield's hand size a 1/4 inch smaller than Jackson's. And finally, UCLA prospect Josh Rosen, 6'4", even 226 pounds. His hand size about average.
I'm a believer of hand size. I think that's important. I think when you're in Cleveland, Ohio, when you play in November and December, you have elements. You have winter. You have certain conditions that your hands have to be bigger. I think the hand sizes that were read off today, I think all of them are acceptable.
Well, that's John Dorsey explaining why all of this matters. It can get confusing. You hear all these numbers, Bill, and you think, really, what can they do on the field? But it does matter, as we know. But I'll start with you and simply ask, whose measurements, in terms of the quarterbacks, whose matter most this week?
Well, obviously Mayfield does, because he's not going to get any taller. So you got to be sure that measurement's the right one, and that's exactly what he measured at the Senior Bowl. In terms of Lamar Jackson, he was listed as 6'3". He's not. He's barely above 6'2". And the 216, I'd like to know what the fat weight is there, because that seems to be a little heavy. That's heavier than he was listed. And oftentimes players will bulk up for the combine, and then you weigh them at the pro day, and they're down below. But both Mayfield and Lamar Jackson at 215, let's say, that's almost too light for the position, and certainly too light for someone who makes his money running the football.
All right, that's what I was going to say. I mean, Cam Newton's one of the only guys that has
250,
run, and he's 250 pounds, and now you're talking about 216, and maybe not a true 216, and so it's
that's quite a disparity.
And then, how does he hold up? That's going to be the big question.
And he won't. And then the hand size is important, because 9.5 is the cutoff, and below that, it's not disqualifying, but you may have to work in the rain and cold weather with a glove. You got to coach against fumbles, because guys with small hands fumble. That's the bottom line. And these numbers are here for a reason. It's because they do relate directly to production in the National Football League.
Specifically, Sam Darnold, to me, is interesting because it's 1/8 of an inch off of the average when you're talking about his hand span. But the fumbles were there. I mean, you turned the ball over 36 times in 24 games. 14 of those were lost fumbles. I believe it's a mechanical issue that can be fixed pretty easily. I mean, it'll take time and reps, but he's just got to get two hands on the football. But if you're there and you're John Dorsey and you're the Cleveland general manager, if it's anywhere close, I think that's when it becomes a factor, because you're looking at, let's say, Josh Allen and Darnold are the two quarterbacks they're considering at number one. You just heard him talk about hand size. You're playing in Cleveland. You're playing in the AFC North, a lot of cold weather, and you've got a USC guy versus, again, he was from Northern California, Josh Allen was, but played in Wyoming, has more experience in that weather, and has massive hands in the size. So that could factor into it ultimately when it's all said and done.
I don't think any of these measurements right now on any of these guys are really a surprise. I think a lot of teams already have anticipated a lot of this, and they're already further along as far as getting past that part of it and really trying to figure out whether or not they have a system in place, they have a culture in place, they have a coaching a scheme in place, and they have the players in place in order to support these guys and help them be successful. Look, last year when Jared Goff came out, or 2 years ago when Jared Goff came out in the draft, there's a lot of concern about his body type too, about his thin lower body, about whether or not he'd be able to hold up, whether he could take a beating. And, you know, if you get hit enough, any quarterback's going to wind up getting put on IR. So with Lamar Jackson, look, he knows he can't play the same style that he played at Louisville in terms of the number of hits he would take as a running quarterback. But interestingly enough, with Lamar Jackson, the more you watch him playing a pro-style offense, the more comfortable he looks. When he stays in the pocket and he's actually running pro-style concepts, he looks like a pretty decent quarterback. So maybe that's exactly where he needs to keep going with it and get away from this whole running quarterback type of label that he has on him right now.
Well, it's certainly safer.
No question.
Especially
if he
for
wants
a guy
to play.
his size, if he wants to play. Listen,